Hello, everyone. We're both anticipating the new big screen adaptation of The Masters of the Universe, and we thought it would be appropriate to take a look at the one and only movie they've ever made, or I should say, the one and only live action movie they've ever made, The Masters of the Universe, which came out in 1987, directed by Gary Goddard and written by David Odell. Just two kind of notable names there. Goddard, unfortunately, is if you Google him, you'll realize he's more well known nowadays for things happening off screen that are truly unfortunate. It's worth Googling him and looking into it. But this is his only directing credit, so it's kind of an interesting little factoid there. Um, the writer, David Odell, did a lot of great work on The Muppets. He co-wrote the script for Dark Crystal. So it's, this is not this is this is not his best work, but certainly a notable script writer in like the sci-fi fantasy genre, and a guy who's done stellar work in the past on on Henson property. Um, so in any case, we'll jump right into it. This is going to be a spoiler review. I mean, this is a little cult film that has some recognition to attach to it, but it was a critical commercial failure when it came out, and for obvious reasons, it's a really deeply flawed film, as many cult films turn out to be. Um, so we're just going to talk about the film and assume that you wouldn't be watching this video if you hadn't seen it. And if you haven't seen it, and that there's really no reason to see it unless you grew up with the He-Man or the original run of He-Man toys and are aware of the big craze, the action hero craze in the 80s, and what a formative part of a lot of little boys' childhoods that toy line was. And if you saw the movie, you probably saw it in the context of being a big fan of the TV series, being a big fan of the toys. But it is a film that I have very fond memories of, and a film that does have at least one really great component in it, which we'll go into detail about. So the film is ostensibly based on the TV series and the characters of the toy line. We've got He-Man, the Superman character. He and the other characters exist on this alternative planet, this high fantasy territory called Eternia. At the beginning of the film, He-Man's arch nemesis Skeletor and his army have gotten farther than they ever did in the cartoon series and actually taken over Castle Grayskull. So at the very beginning of this film, Skeletor is like on the verge of reigning supreme. In addition to taking Castle Grayskull, he also just needs the power of the sorceress in order to become the supreme master of the universe. So He-Man and his allies, Man-at-Arms and Teela, try to stop him and try to rescue the sorceress. So what eventually happens is that they and this mysterious kind of
Inventor.
weird scientist inventor Gwildor, played by Billy Barty, invented this thing called the Cosmic Key, which is a key that you can use to unlock a portal to any other dimension that you want to. So they do that to escape from Skeletor and his hordes, and of course, where do they end up? They end up in our world, they end up on Earth. That kind of gets us into right away one of the big problems with this film, and one of the biggest disappointments for me and Jesse when we were little, is that this is a film that does not take place on Eternia. One of the really interesting and kind of like fast, fun things about the Toyland is the idea that it had this whole kind of very superficial but nevertheless very compelling mythology connected to it. There was this sense of this whole new world Eternia with this castle Grayskull, this magical sword. You had Skeletor and the evil forces. You had the battle of good and evil. So there was this high fantasy concept that was really fun for a little kid. And you get about 5 minutes of that at the beginning of the film, and then we're plopped down on Earth, and it's like, okay, so He-Man now is, wandering around on sidewalks and, kind of urban center, surrounded by cars and fast food, and it's just, yeah, it's like, okay.
Right.
Even as a kid, I was like, this is just really, I'm not here for this. Although I wouldn't have put it in those terms. Once they come into the portal, for some reason, just funnily enough, there's this very cheap plot device. The Cosmic Key gets lost once they're transported to the new dimension. So they spend, now they've got to spend most of the film looking for the Cosmic Key. Meanwhile, Skeletor is obsessed with getting He-Man. During the course of trying to find the key, they meet two Earthlings. They meet Courtney Cox's character, Julie, and then they meet her boyfriend, Kevin, played by Robert Duncan McNeil, who I don't really know. But anyway, so yeah, they're the two, like, it's like, because the He-Man characters are so strange and so alien that you need these like Earthlings to like anchor you in the world, right? I'm being deeply sarcastic about that, by the way, in case you didn't get that.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not really clear on what Courtney Cox and this other guy are doing in this movie. Like, what point they have? Like, why are they? Why? Right? I mean, it's just it blows my mind when I go back and think that Courtney Cox in this movie. It's kind of like Jennifer Aniston in Leprechaun, right? It's like, how did that happen? What's I don't. Aren't they supposed to be at Central
Yeah,
Perk right now? Isn't that what's?
yeah.
It's just
The
weird,
funny thing
right?
about that, yeah, yeah. I remember them more for the roles in like Courtney Cox in Masters of the Universe and Jennifer Aniston in Leprechaun than in their major, more high profile stuff like Friends. Like when I look back at their work, like that's what I go
Mm.
back to.
Definitely in terms of films, yeah. Although I do like Courtney Cox in the Scream franchise as well. So I mean,
Oh,
there's
right,
that.
right. Oh, yeah.
Um,
She's
yeah,
great in that.
yeah, no, and I think Courtney Cox is really good. I don't have any problem with Courtney Cox. It's weird to see her like this really really young Courtney Cox in the '80s in Masters of the Universe because like she's so far removed from anyone I associate with that property, right? I mean, why is she in this film?
Yeah,
It's just one of those funny things. So it was a commercial failure. The critics, as you might expect, just hated it. Thought it was a joke.
yeah,
It was really kind of like
yeah.
one of the many like yeah, I think of the '80s like as this weird kind of like the awkward adolescence of fantasy films, right? Right? You know, it's like
Hmm.
fantasy was in the process of trying to grow up at that point and really kind of come to grips with the technological limitations, right? Special effects were pretty limited in the '80s. You know, there are some
Yeah.
absolute gems you can point to. I think Ron Howard's Willow is an example.
Also with
What's another
also with
one?
Billy Barty is in Willow too, right? So has a
Yeah, no,
supporting
no,
role.
really, really
Yeah,
big deal. Billy
yeah,
Barty is like a
yeah,
legendary little person in the business. Worked for decades.
yeah. When we were young, I remember seeing this film, like you
Mm.
probably do, in the at the rental stores, and the cover
Mm-hmm.
was
Yeah,
so like intriguing. It had such a like a badass poster and cover art. It was produced by Canon Films, and they
mm-hmm.
primarily made action movies. You know, like American Ninja. They produced those movies with Michael
Oh, sure.
Dudikoff.
Mm.
And so they went to do Masters of the Universe here on a shoestring budget. One of their
Mm.
higher budgeted movies, but still not enough of a budget to manage the scale and the scope that was needed. And they had trouble like funding this movie. And so, and one of the reasons that the climax of the movie was underwhelming is because they ran out of money.
The director Gary Goddard at that point was pretty much paying out of pocket to finish the movie. Um, it is interesting one reason if you're like a real fan of like movies and interested in how movies are made and like the inventiveness that you need when you're working with a lower budget and you run out of money. It's interesting to go and see the final fight scene in this film because I remember as a kid, even though I thought the film was disappointing, I remember being totally into the final fight scene and thinking it was really dramatic and pretty effective
Right.
as a set piece. But when you actually read about it, I mean, the reason that it looks the way it does, the reason it's just kind of like totally dark and really stripped down is because like they didn't. I mean, Goddard was paying out of pocket to continue filming at that point, and just had only the essential elements. We need He-Man, we need Skeletor, we need a camera. You know, this is what we need. So let's let's
Yeah.
let's make the final battle after all of these bare bone elements. And you know what? I mean, as far
Yeah.
as in a film where not too many things work, that's actually one of the things in the film that works for me is that final battle. I think it's pretty effective. So it's fun, like if you're like a fan of like Roger Corman's style of filmmaking, where you love watching indie directors of B movie cinema go out and like do a lot with a little. That's kind of a fun example,
Yeah.
and it's probably one of the reasons
Yeah.
this is a cult film now. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we could look at the characters here, starting with He-Man, Dolph Lundgren's He-Man. I really liked his look. I like how they. Well, for one thing, it's not cartoon accurate,
uh,
right? It's totally not cartoon
mm.
accurate.
No,
Wait, wait, what are you
well, no,
laughing
it's
about?
not inaccurate exactly. Well, I'm laughing because like I like Dolph Lundgren, um, but like I mean, He's
his
just he's
his
just a
line
body in this film. He really
he
is.
is his line delivery is comical at times. Let's just say.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
mean
like
he's been better in other films, I will say, but he's remarkably
yeah.
wooden in this film. Like he's not a great actor. I don't think Dolph Lundgren's a great actor. I do think he's put in, kind of like passable, solid genre performances in other films, but this is not one of them. He's pretty much just like, well, we're not your
Right.
enemies. I don't know. I can't think of any like memorable lines. He's really just kind of speaking his lines, but he does look
Yeah, yeah.
great.
Well,
He doesn't really look like the cartoon character, right? But he does look pretty cool.
well, a close enough approximation physically and with the blonde hair. I
Hmm.
thought in terms of like a live action performer actor, like selling like the pure brawn and muscles, like he was
Mm.
perfect casting. And they
Yeah, he
gave
looks
him
the
a
part for sure.
redesign. Yeah. And his armor and suit was redesigned and very different from.
Mm.
Well, I mean, it carries some motifs from the cartoon, but um, gives him a different kind of more gritty, realistic kind of treatment of the armor. Actually, they were the concept artist. I forget who was the main concept artist was struggling with the He-Man suit and really nailing it, and so he brought on the comic artist Mobius, um,
Oh,
aka Jean
sure, Mobius.
Giraud or
Wow.
Giraud. Yeah, Mobius is really responsible for giving us the final look of He-Man for this movie, so that's pretty cool. I think some of the costuming and the
Mm.
concept art and design here is pretty great. The execution fails sometimes because of the budget, but I think with He-Man, like in terms of his look and appearance, I really dug it. I thought they did a great job with it. Yeah,
Well, you talk about like things that you can be like. This film is pure nostalgia trip for me, right? That's what it is. And like one of the things you
yeah,
can point to is like you've got Dolph Lundgren in this '80s rific superhero outfit, right? Or like hero outfit. He's got like the '80s hair with it's been teased up. He's got the body bearing like all those muscles everywhere, and he's got the glitter. He looks fantastic, and the whole thing looks fantastic from a nostalgic standpoint because it is so very 80s. Um,
Hmm.
but in addition to He-Man, I think like we've got like some pretty cool supporting characters. One of the things that did disappoint me when I was younger about the film is that amongst like the villains, other than Skeletor, the only character that was actually in the TV series or a toy, a figure, is Beastman. See, you've got Beastman, but then they
And
pretty much
Evil-Lyn.
invented the other characters. Oh, and Evil-Lyn. Yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot about Evil-Lyn. So this
played
character
by Meg
Karg,
Foster.
who's kind of like this.
Yeah,
Yes, she's amazing. Meg Foster's one of those actresses. I don't understand why we didn't see her more because she's so interesting because of those amazing eyes. But anyway, like Karg, not one of the original toys, not in the TV show. Same thing with
Blade.
Blade and Saurod, right? The Saurod
Cyborg.
character is like Lizard Man thing. He's pretty cool. Like I think he's cool, but he's not like one of the originals. Um,
Yeah,
so you've got Evil-Lyn, I mean, Meg Foster's amazing. I love her. But I mean,
yeah.
they are pretty
Karg.
effective characters.
Yeah, I was thinking like with the
Hmm.
look of Karg, he looks kind of like a bat. His face, and then he has that hook for a hand.
I don't know. He kind of almost
So
looked like a futuristic orc to me, right? I mean,
or Orc. Yeah,
is what.
yeah.
Yeah, but again, like I kind of like shriveled Jareth from the Labyrinth is really shriveled
Well,
dead
right.
Jareth.
He actually he
You
has that
know.
'80s glamour rock hair. Yeah.
Right. He's got
So
Jareth's hair. I mean, did he
yeah,
steal it, or is that Jareth? Is this what happened when Jareth lost?
yeah.
He became this shriveled demon character. But of course, this is not my He-Man, right? These characters are cool, but they're not He-Man characters. So that was like another big
Um,
problem.
the new character of Gwildor was very much probably so replacing the Orko character from the cartoon, fulfilling that kind of role.
Right.
Yeah.
I read a little about that. Yeah. They couldn't duplicate Orko. And because like I mean, you guys know, or if you're watching this, you know Orko, right? He's this little red ghost thing. They were going to have to animate him, or he was going to have to be a puppet. Like, how are you going to do Orko in 1987, right? When you don't really You don't have CGI. You don't have any of that stuff. So they
Right.
came up with Gwildor instead. And, they have Billy Barty. And again, it's like even as kids, like who's Gwildor? Why is Gwildor in this movie? Who is this guy? And where is Orko? I
Right.
was wondering that. But anyway,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter because for whatever reason, and I actually know the reason, I know exactly why, but we watched this film on repeat at a certain point. We were watching it a lot. It wasn't ever a film that I thought this is a great movie. It's one of my like special films, but man, it is fun to watch. It's fun to go back and watch it again and again, especially when you're, 12, 13-year-old boy like I was. Um, and I still get a kick out of it. I get a kick out of it
Yeah.
for one specific reason, and of course, as you can probably guess if you've seen the film, that reason is Frank Langella as Skeletor. I remember thinking as a kid, right, like everything in this movie is disappointing. I think Dolph Lundgren looks okay as He-Man, but none of these characters are from the TV show. None of these characters are actually the toys that I have. It takes place on Earth. Who is Gwildor? All this stuff, right? But Skeletor, man, he looked amazing. It was an amazing makeup job, amazing costuming. Frank Langella gives a legendary, gloriously hammy performance as Skeletor and just sinks his teeth into that role. And I was like, man, this is not the TV show Skeletor. This is better, man. This Skeletor is like fierce. This Skeletor is dark. There's a Shakespearean element to the Skeletor that's not in the TV show at all. Skeletor in the TV show is funny because he's like pretty bad at his job. Most of the time, he just bumbles around and stinks.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
of course, has now become legendary in a series of memes, a series of video shorts.
Yeah.
Skeletor continues to haunt our dreams. Uh, but yeah, Langella, man, like
True.
he's the reason that we were watching this over and over again. He has the best lines. He delivers them with such enthusiasm, and then he just looks amazing. That's an amazing costume. That's an amazing prosthetic. That's an amazing makeup.
Which is interesting because people had negative reactions to the prosthetics. Some people think they look fake and rubbery and campy, and
Mm-hmm.
let's face it, they do a little bit. But I think for me, they really work because Langella's performance, he's able to like still communicate an expressive performance through that. And so the prosthetics were just enough to create that skeletal appearance, but also not just hide the actor completely. So I think it was a nice balance. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
again, like I looked at him and thought, yeah, this is definitely not the TV series Skeletor. This is definitely not the Skeletor from, this is not the action figure. But like, really, I thought this is better. He's so much more badass. Um,
and you can see them
you know,
doing
he
a riff,
yeah.
yeah, like a riff on Star Wars, like bringing that kind of dark fantasy Star Wars esque vibe, where
Mm,
Skeletor is this like
right.
fatherly Darth Vader figure to He Man, and they have that kind of conflict.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's interesting that like, a lot of people I think just thought this was like another attempt to like cash in on the Star Wars craze, right? All of their fantasy and science fiction films that came out in that era were going to be compared to Star Wars. It seemed like it was trying to look and trying to feel a little too much like Star Wars to get away with anything, and especially like the He-Man and Skeletor dynamic. That's pure Shakespeare. It's pure mythology. But of course, because Star Wars was so beholden to mythology, it just seemed a lot like Star Wars too. Yeah. One of my favorite lines, you talk about a quotable line, belongs to Skeletor regarding that relationship with He-Man, and it's when he has He-Man as his captive at the end of the film, and he's been torturing him, and He-Man refuses to break, and he says, "Tell me about the loneliness of good, He-Man. Is it equal to the loneliness of evil?" And I'm like, whoa, goosebumps, man. I'm watching this piece of crap action
Right.
fest. All of a sudden, just something just happened.
Yeah.
He dropped some philosophy on me. I think that one of the things this film is trying to do is that it is trying to like be a kind of like piece of highly mythological storytelling, right? You've got like arch good and arch evil. You've got the hero and and you've got the forces of darkness. So, it's all really cheesy, and most of the time it doesn't really come off. But anytime that Frank Langella gets serious screen time and can deliver one of those fantastic lines, yeah, I mean, it works. The film really works then.
It
Um,
does. It does.
yeah, but it's like a nostalgia kick, like I said. But that's really the draw for it for me now, because then I remember the toys again. I remember the TV series. I remember the way I felt
Would
when I first saw Skeletor in the flesh and brought to life in this highly
yeah.
Shakespearean way by Langella.
I would say, other than Skeletor, maybe like the other MVP of this film for me is Detective Lubic. Is it played by
Oh
James
yeah,
Tolkien?
I was
James
just
Tolkien?
I was saying
Yeah.
we forgot to talk about we forgot about talk about
Yeah.
Hugh Lubic, man. Hey,
Yeah,
looking
Lubic.
back
Yeah,
now
James
from
Tolkien. Yeah.
yeah, no, he's
That guy
amazing.
is
He turns
hilarious.
up and yeah, and again, like he's one of those actors that is very time bound for me. I really associate him with that era of filmmaking for me, that area of media and pop culture, because he just kept turning up. He's so memorable, like similar to like Frank Langella for a different reason. He just sinks his teeth into that part. He's the ultimate like grumpy boomer. Now that I'm
Yeah.
like looking back at it, we weren't really referring to people as boomers back then, I don't think, but that's the character, and he nails it. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel like he kind of like is a member of the audience in a way, in the sense that like that character is kind of like, what the heck is going on here? Who are you people?
Yeah.
I don't trust you as far as I
Yeah.
can throw you.
Yeah.
You're coming to this. You're coming to the station with me. I don't know who you people are. Whatever it is, you're involved somehow. You know, and of course he's not wrong. I think it captures the way that kids perceive a certain kind of adult, right? Like these authority figures that are just trying to step on my fun. You know, here you are. You're just this grumpy like detective character. Why are you being this way, man? Bruh. Why can't you just let me have fun, bruh? It
Yeah.
seems like that's like kind of the role he fills, like this inexplicably grumpy character, who's surrounded by these fantasy characters that are trying to have this great comic, this great epic quest narrative, right? And meanwhile, he's over here like,
Well,
bringing the
yeah.
comic relief.
Yeah. What's funny, the kind of the turnaround that character makes by the end of it, because he's like completely firmly based in the real world and doesn't go beyond that until he winds up in this epic battle on Eternia, and then he like just does a switch where he's like fully embracing it, and like a little kid, and doesn't want to leave. He even gets
Well, he
himself a
doesn't
girl,
leave. That's the
Eternian.
thing. Like,
He doesn't leave. He
yeah.
decides to stay there. Hey, I'm gonna stay in the fantasy land here. So
Well, and this is like another way in which I think that character resonates. I refer to him as the grumpy adult, right? Who's like just like kind of like the narc. Um, but he also like I think he like speaks for all frustrated '80s beta boys in that moment, right? Wouldn't it be great if we could leave this crappy planet Earth and just be on this like place Eternia, where you've got these like gorgeous women and dress in these fantastically cool outfits and like have battles and with laser guns and stuff, and just that kind of like sophomoric fantasy that you have at that age. And I also love the idea that this character, like, he's like, how old is he? And he's in his 50s or whatever. He could just disappear. It doesn't matter, right? What is he got a wife? No. Siblings, relations, cousins, friends. Apparently, it just doesn't matter. He can just disappear, man. You never have to see him again. He's not worried about what anyone's going to think about where he's gone. Is he dead? Who cares?
yeah, yeah. That's great. Yeah.
He could just disappear. It's like,
No,
why
it's
would I
great.
leave? Why would I leave? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing is that I
Oh,
think if considering this film had a low budget, I will say I can think of better ways to spend your money than a scene where all the Eternia heroes and Gwildor are eating chicken wings. Why is
yeah.
that in the film? Why am I watching Gwildor and Man-at-Arms and Tila eat chicken wings, man? One thing really funny that happens during that encounter, though, is that because they're eating like Earth food and they're in this unfamiliar place, like the scriptwriter Odell wanted us to like be aware of just how different, like, this is cultural dissonance, like culture shock for them because things are so different. So apparently they practice a vegetarian diet in Eternia, or at least Tila does. So she's like, I wonder why
Yeah.
they put the meat on these little sticks. And Man of War is like, those are rib bones. She's like, this used to be an animal. I love the idea that Tila from Eternia doesn't frickin' know what bones are. It just seems
Right.
kind of far fetched to me now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, it's like you can be a
Yeah,
vegetarian and know
yeah,
what
yeah,
bones are.
yeah, yeah,
Anywho.
yeah. Oh, speaking of which, that's the other thing that's I'm just thinking of the animals now and mammals. Like that's the other thing that's missing from this movie are the creatures of Eternia, like Battle Cat, you know? So
Yeah, it's again like how are they going to bring that to life? Like how could they have Battle Cat? How
yeah,
could they
without like
have
looking,
Panther for Skeletor, right? They couldn't. It would have to be stop motion, which I think at that point in 1987, people had concluded that looks goofy. You know, they have enough money to throw at some pretty cool effects. I love Skeletor's eye lasers. I
oh
love when
yeah,
he throws lightning out of his hands. You know, this dark
yeah.
sorcerer character that was legitimately cool.
It was, yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. No, I love his transformation scene. You know, it's just foregrounding those characters, because as fans, particularly as kids, that's what it's all about, He-Man and Skeletor, and so they gave you that moment at the end, so and worked within their
well,
limitations.
yeah, and
Yeah,
that's one of the things they give you in the film that you don't get in the TV series, right? Is like you don't really ever get a great big final battle between He-Man and Skeletor. Skeletor usually runs off with his tail tucked between his legs. I mean, so to speak, in the cartoon.
right, right,
Yeah.
right.
Um,
Well, what do you think about the stinger at the end? Because they tease a sequel, and it seems like Skeletor was dispatched, but he's still living or survives it at the end. They have that post-credit
I
scene with Skeletor, and they had and Canon Films where it was planning a sequel, which has an interesting legacy and history in and of itself.
right. Well, I mean, I was jazzed because again, I mean, in a movie that I recognize as having a lot of flaws, I loved the Skeletor character, and I thought if Frank Langella can come back and play that character again, I'm here for it.
They had already built sets and costumes for this Masters of the Universe sequel, and they just didn't have the money to finish it, to bring it to the scale that it needed to be. And so they had a director for the film, Albert Pune, who's mainly known for making like B movie genre pieces in the realms of sci-fi and horror.
Mm.
And they asked him to come up with a script that could use these sets and costumes. And so the script he came up with was Cyborg, that Van Damme movie, which he ended up directing. And so they repurposed those sets and costumes for Van Damme's Cyborg.
Well, I think it's really fun about that though is they got 3 films out of that franchise. I mean, there wound up being 3 Cyborg films. So they repurposed the sets for a Cyborg film, which is like this knockoff, but they made a second film and they made a third film. It became a trilogy, man.
Oh
They did
right,
that.
there. I know. Yeah, I've seen the sequel with Angelina Jolie. I wasn't aware there was a Cyborg 3 too.
Yeah,
There's
I
a
think
third
so. I think there's
Cyborg
three
film.
films.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they made 2 more sequels. Uh,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
it did enough business for them to go ahead and make 2 more. I don't know if the film turned a profit or not, but although at that point, I mean, Jean-Claude Van Damme was making films that made money. I mean, Jean-Claude was a moneymaker at this point, which also makes me very nostalgic to think about that. These 80s action films, especially the fantasy films, they have a unique look and feel to them. I will say that about like Masters of the Universe is that Masters of the Universe, Cyborg, even though the really cheapy cheezo ones, like they have a unique atmosphere because they do look and feel very unique.
They do, and I appreciate the 1987 Masters movie for giving the He-Man universe a kind of a gritty feel and look and a dark aesthetic, and
Hmm.
and that's conveyed through the portrayals, particularly Frank Langella's Skeletor portrayal. It makes
Hmm.
me very curious to see how they redo Skeletor, a live action Skeletor, with Jared Leto's Skeletor in this new 2026 Masters of the Universe movie coming out. We got a sneak peek of Skeletor in
Yeah,
the new trailer.
I'm really
You
excited
know,
for the film. When I heard they cast Jared Leto as I think at least the voice of Skeletor, I was like, Okay, we'll see. I mean, Jared Leto,
Yeah.
his claim to fame for me is pretty much that he's everyone's least favorite Joker. So you go and like cast him, in a role that's gonna remind everyone of the Joker, and it's like that's probably not the best decision you could have made. Although, I mean, I don't hate Leto or anything. We'll see. I mean, the previews are good. I love the cast. I love the fact that they're just going all into it. They're going to give it the big glitzy, high fantasy treatment, blockbuster treatment.
Make it look like the
Yeah,
cartoon too.
I thought this for like a long time. When are they finally going to make these things look like the source material? Because that's what we really want, right? Um, I felt that way about. I still feel that way about the X-Men movies, right? The X-Men don't look like the X-Men. I want the X-Men to look like the X-Men. So it's great that they've really embraced the aesthetic and embraced the action hero feel or the action figure feel.
Do you think we should rate Masters of the Universe here?
And I'm not going to give this film any stars. This film transcends the very concept of a rating. Uh, this film is just it. This film is in my pop culture DNA. It's traveled with me ever since I saw it. When I was, I don't know, 11, 12 years old. I don't know how old I was, but the film has stayed with me, right? Love it, hate it, is it good, is it bad? It doesn't matter. It stayed with me. It's a film that I still go back and think about now and then. It's beyond reviewing. It's in my blood. It's in my DNA, guys. Am I going to review myself?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
me
give
too,
myself a
man.
bad rating. But it's like I
Yeah,
can't rate this film. This film is
yeah,
too
yeah.
close to me. Yeah,
Right, right, right. Me
yeah.
too.
Pure
Yeah, I
comfort
can't
food.
give it
Yeah, pure comfort food. I'll say that.
yeah, yeah, I can't be objective about
Mm,
it. It's
mm.
part of our childhood, and it's objectively speaking, I can see its flaws, and
Oh, sure.
we can pick them apart. But like, I still enjoy watching it, and a big part of that is because it takes us back to a shared experience, in our childhood, that kind of unlocks
Hmm.
that memory of that time of growing up with He-Man, growing up with the cartoons, and just enjoying inhabiting that fun, campy, high fantasy world.
Any film that you and I watched together that we watched more than once and watched it with our dad and watched it in that context of the 80s and that whole period, it's always going to be
And with our mom.
special. There's something about it that yeah, and with our mind, there's something that you can't touch, right? There's something about it you can't touch and can't be objective about. It just, it's part of my cultural fabric. It's part of who I am as a person. Let us know in the comments what you think about this film. If you have fond memories of it, if it's a film you kind of remember, somebody from our generation, for instance. Uh, Also, let us know if you're looking forward to the reboot that He-Man and his colleagues are finally getting. Yeah, this is another edition of our After Hours Screen Talk. Please like and subscribe. We'll continue to do this for you.